Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're going to be tackling a topic I think a lot of people are curious about, attracting women, specifically from a male perspective.
Okay.
And our source material for this is a set of audio tracks that, um, you know, purport to kind of unlock the secrets of male irresistibility.
Yeah.
Now, before we dive into the content itself, I want to just mention that we're here to unpack the core ideas and the kind of intriguing perspectives presented. We are not here to endorse any particular viewpoint.
Right.
So just keep that in mind as we go through this material. Some of it you're going to agree with, some of it maybe not. But that's kind of the point of the deep dive. Let's just see what's out there.
Yeah, I think these are really interesting because they go beyond just the superficial level of advice.
Yeah.
They really try to get into this whole psychology of attraction that the
Yeah.
speaker refers to.
Yeah, and right off the bat, he talks about this idea of vibe. And he stresses that, a strong sexual vibe. He says, trumps physical appearance alone. And he even compares it to a dopamine release,
Right.
suggesting that it triggers this immediate, almost primal response in a woman.
It's interesting because if you think about it, dopamine is associated with pleasure and reward.
Right.
So maybe he's onto something by saying that if a man can project a strong sexual energy, that maybe it taps into that reward system and creates that kind of immediate attraction.
And to illustrate this point, he talks about how, women and even gay men often present themselves in a way that accentuates their sexuality.
Yeah.
And he kind of throws it back to the straight men and says, hey,
Yeah.
maybe you guys could learn a thing or two.
Right.
Because straight men are often conditioned to kind of downplay that side of themselves.
Yeah.
He even gives a few examples of ways men can subtly signal this sexual energy. He mentions things like pendants, bracelets, even racing jackets. And he even uses the term pimp suits. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure I'm ready to go there, but...
Yeah, but it's interesting what he's saying there. It's that without being overt, you can still have a way to project that confidence and sexual awareness.
Yeah, and this leads right into his next point, which is about creating sexual tension. He's a big believer in establishing a clear frame of attraction early on.
Right.
And he's not shy about pushing boundaries. Like, one example he gives is that he says, take a woman's hand early in an interaction, even if she resists. Like, kind of as a way to signal your intentions and establish this sense of dominance.
See, now this is where it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Because while on one hand, there might be some psychological basis for the idea that a little tension can heighten attraction, you do have to be really careful about the context here.
Of course.
And always respect personal boundaries.
Yeah.
What he's presenting as pushing boundaries could be easily misinterpreted if not done carefully.
Yeah.
And with consent.
Yeah, and societal expectations play a huge role here too, so you always have to be mindful of that.
Right, exactly.
And this leads us to kind of a related concept, the power of non-validation.
Okay.
Now, the speaker believes that withholding immediate validation creates a sense of tension,
Right.
almost like a challenge that can make a man seem more valuable. It's almost like he's kind of turning the tables on typical dating dynamics.
It's that scarcity principle.
Yeah.
When something's less readily available, it seems more desirable.
Right.
And that applies to all sorts of things from, luxury goods to relationships. It's a very well-established psychological principle.
And he uses this roller coaster analogy.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
To illustrate it. You got to have those moments of tension.
Right.
To make the ride exciting. But
Yeah.
again, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between creating intrigue
Right.
and playing mind games.
Exactly. Context is everything.
Right.
And it's really important to be mindful of the other person's feelings and boundaries.
Okay, so we've got this vibe, we've got this tension, we've got this scarcity. What about the more tangible aspects of attraction? Like, the speaker doesn't just focus on all the psychological stuff.
Right. He does talk about visual presentation.
Yeah.
And it's not about conforming to any particular ideal,
Right.
but it's about projecting a sense of success and self-respect and individuality through the choices you make.
Right, and he gets very specific here.
Yeah.
He talks about contacts over glasses,
Okay.
good haircut, regular workouts, dressing well. It's all about sending those signals.
Yeah, and research shows that those visual cues really do play a huge role in first impressions.
Yeah.
They can really influence how people perceive you
Yeah.
when it comes to confidence, status, even intelligence.
Okay, so we've got the vibe and we've got the looks, but what about personality? One thing the speaker talks about a lot is confident humor and teasing.
Yeah.
And he believes that this is a key part of attraction.
I mean, look at the movies. Like Titanic, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Those classic male characters, they all use humor to kind of connect and disarm.
Yeah, he uses a couple of kind of technical sounding terms.
Does he?
Yeah, like breaking rapport and assuming rapport. But basically what he's talking about is being playful and challenging while also projecting confidence.
So breaking rapport is like intentionally saying or doing something to kind of shake things up a little.
Right.
But assuming rapport is acting like you're already connected, so you don't create that awkwardness that you might get from breaking rapport.
Right. And he gives some hilarious examples.
Like what?
He talks about, teasing a woman about a shirt that looks like barber bandages or making a joke about a raw burger in a restaurant.
It's about keeping it lighthearted.
Right. Being unpredictable, which is something he talks about a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of keeping people on their toes, he also talks a lot about body language.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically projecting dominance.
Okay.
He says, don't lean in too much. Don't be too eager.
Right.
Don't adopt submissive postures. It's about owning your space.
Right.
Standing tall, moving with relaxed but confident energy.
Like, fake it till you make it.
It's kind of like that, yeah.
Even if you don't feel confident,
just
project it.
Yeah. And there's actually some truth to that.
There is.
Our body language can actually influence our own state.
Oh, for sure.
And how others perceive us.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, this leads to a really fascinating point. The power of the voice.
Okay.
He has some really interesting ideas about how to develop a powerful, attractive voice.
Like what?
He suggests speaking slowly and clearly.
Okay.
Using a deeper tone. Eliminating filler words.
Right.
Projecting confidence through vocal delivery.
Yeah, it's amazing how much your voice can communicate.
It is. It really is.
And how that affects how other people see you.
Yeah. And, I never thought about it before, but it makes sense that so much of what we perceive as smart actually comes from how someone presents themselves vocally.
It's part of your presentation, just like your clothing and your body language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of presentation, let's loop back to this idea of scarcity, because the speaker offers some tactical advice for cultivating this aura of scarcity. He talks about setting time constraints, ending interactions first, and generally not being too readily available.
Well, it goes back to communicating that your time and attention are valuable.
Right.
Because like we said, when something's scarce, it tends to be more desirable.
And it ties back to that withholding validation as well.
Exactly.
All about striking that balance.
Right.
Showing interest, but also maintaining your sense of self-respect.
You don't want to seem desperate.
Exactly.
It's not attractive.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because he talks about this concept of reverse rationalization.
I love this one.
It's really powerful. And it's about understanding attraction at a psychological level.
Yeah.
He explains that people often rationalize their actions after the fact to align with their self-image.
Yeah, we tend to believe what we want to believe.
Right.
And then we come up with reasons to support that belief.
Right. It's like we're convincing ourselves that our actions reflect our feelings.
Even if those feelings weren't there originally.
Right. And he gives this funny example about a guy who forgets that he met his wife at a club.
Oh, yeah.
Simply because it doesn't fit with the narrative that he's created about their relationship.
We shape our memories to fit our self-image.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
Okay, so we've got this reverse rationalization potentially working in our favor. But what about keeping things exciting? Unpredictable. Because that seems to be a recurring theme throughout these tracks.
Well, it's important.
Yeah.
Keeps people engaged, keeps things interesting.
Yeah, and he suggests things like alternating between cocky and genuine behaviors. Or giving surprising answers to questions. Just basically keeping the other person guessing.
Keeps them on their toes.
Yeah, and there's a neurological basis for this.
Is there?
Yeah, novelty and unpredictability trigger dopamine release in the brain.
Interesting.
Which creates feelings of excitement and intrigue.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we've got the vibe, we've got the looks, we've got the humor, we've got the body language, we've got scarcity, reverse rationalization, unpredictability.
It's all about creating this really interesting persona.
Yeah. Are you starting to see a pattern here?
I am.
It's like he's painting this picture of what he calls the cool guy.
The cool guy, yeah.
And one of the final pieces of the puzzle that he emphasizes is the power of touch.
Okay.
Or what he calls kino.
Kino.
Yeah. And he recommends using touch strategically to escalate physical intimacy,
Okay.
starting with playful, non-invasive touches
Right.
and gradually progressing to more intimate contact.
So it's about building comfort and connection
Exactly.
through touch.
Yeah. And again, this ties back to our primal instincts.
Right.
Touch is such a fundamental form of communication.
It is.
And when used appropriately, can really evoke powerful emotional and physical responses.
So we've got the vibe, we've got the looks, we've got the humor, we've got the touch.
Yeah.
What does this all add up to?
I think it all adds up to this archetype of the cool guy.
Well, the cool guy, yeah.
And he describes the cool guy as somebody who understands social dynamics, knows when to be playful and when to be genuine,
Right.
projects an air of effortless confidence,
Mm-hmm.
has a strong sense of personal style. He's not a jerk,
Yeah.
but he's not a pushover either.
Right.
He's just comfortable in his own skin,
Mm-hmm.
takes risks,
Yeah.
knows how to have a good time.
And this all relates to the concept of social intelligence.
Right.
You know, being able to read people,
Yeah.
navigate social situations.
Yeah. It's about being the kind of person that people are just drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you're trying too hard, but because you genuinely enjoy life and you're comfortable in your own skin.
And that in itself is attractive.
It's like we've been given this peek behind the curtain, haven't we? We're seeing the mechanics of attraction, the levers and pulleys that kind of create that spark.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that these tracks encourage you to actually use these principles, experiment with them,
Right.
see what works for you.
Yeah, it's like a challenge, right?
It is.
To kind of step outside of our comfort zones and embrace this new way of being.
Yeah, and that can be really empowering
Yeah.
to break free from those limiting beliefs,
Right.
build confidence, and create more fulfilling connections.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, let's turn it over to you, the listener.
Yeah.
What has stood out to you most from these audio tracks so far?
What resonated with you?
What surprised you?
Did anything challenge your perspective? You know, it's interesting how these tracks kind of present this like roadmap almost for cultivating this like cool guy persona.
Yeah.
And they break it down into all these like tangible strategies
Yeah.
listeners can practice and try out in their own lives.
It's like a toolkit
Yeah.
for self-improvement, but with the specific goal of attracting women.
I think a key takeaway for me is that understanding the whole, you know, dynamics of attraction.
Yeah.
It's not just about looks or money or status or any of that. It's like there's a whole psychology to it.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is confidence, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Projecting this sense of self-assurance, self-worth.
Confidence is so attractive because it shows you're comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
You're not afraid to take risks.
Right.
You believe in yourself.
But it's not just about saying, I'm confident.
No.
You have to actually embody it.
You got to embody it.
In your words, your actions, your body language.
It's about congruency.
Yeah.
All your signals have got to be aligned to make that impression authentic.
Right. And the tracks offer some really interesting techniques for this.
Yeah.
And one that stuck out to me was this concept of future projection.
Oh, yeah.
Where you basically plant the seed of a future together in the other person's mind.
Yeah, kind of focusing on the possibility of something more.
Right. You're creating this shared narrative that you can both imagine yourselves in.
Exactly, and it goes back to that reverse rationalization.
Right.
You're giving them a reason to rationalize being attracted to you.
Yeah, like you're building this bridge between the present
Yeah.
and the potential future together.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about manipulation.
Right.
It's about creating that sense of possibility, shared experience.
Especially in those early stages when
Yeah.
you're still kind of figuring each other out.
Okay, another thing that stuck out to me is this idea of ending interactions first.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's a date, a phone call, even just a casual conversation.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes that.
Why is that?
Why do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to scarcity.
Right.
Your time, your attention are valuable.
Right. You're not always available.
Exactly.
So they better savor those moments that they have with you.
And it makes you seem less desperate.
Right. Which is definitely not attractive.
No.
So yeah, leave them wanting more.
Classic advice.
Right. But it's not just about playing games.
No, it's not about manipulation.
Right.
It's about understanding how this all works.
Right.
Creating that spark.
Yeah, and this leads into sexual tension, which is something that he talks about a lot.
Right.
He's always emphasizing being playful and teasing, pushing boundaries, withholding validation.
Keeping them on their toes?
Right. But he's very clear that this should all be done respectfully.
Of course.
It's not about being a jerk or making someone uncomfortable.
No, you want to create a fun, flirty dynamic.
Right. And it goes back to that dopamine release.
Right.
That anticipation and excitement triggers those reward centers in the brain.
Makes you more attractive.
And he gives some really concrete examples of how to do this.
Like what?
He talks about using confident humor, making playful touches,
Okay.
giving unexpected answers to questions.
Just keep them guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little unpredictability goes a long way.
It's like you're creating a story.
Yeah.
And they want to see how it unfolds.
So it's not just about mastering a set of techniques.
Right.
It's about embodying that energy,
Yeah.
living it out.
Be authentic.
And that's what I really appreciate about these tracks.
Yeah.
They give you this framework for understanding and applying these principles.
Because like any skill.
Right.
You got to practice it.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for the listener?
Yeah.
How can they actually use these insights in their own lives?
I think the first step is to become aware of the dynamics.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how you interact with people, how you present yourself,
Right.
you communicate.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Exactly.
Try some of these techniques out.
See what works for you.
And remember, it's not about being someone you're not.
No, be yourself.
Right. It's about tapping into that authentic self.
Yeah, and express that in a way that's compelling,
Right.
attractive.
And have fun with it.
Of course it should be fun.
Yeah.
It's not a chore.
Right.
Relax, enjoy it.
Yeah. Take risks.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Step outside your comfort zone.
Okay, so we've talked about all this psychology stuff, but what about the more practical stuff?
Okay.
What can listeners actually do to,
Yeah.
improve their chances of attracting women?
Well, he talks a lot about visual presentation.
Yeah.
Taking care of your appearance,
Mm-hmm.
dressing well.
Yeah, he's not talking about conforming to some,
No.
unrealistic ideal.
It's about finding a style
right.
that reflects you.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Confident.
Exactly.
And pay attention to the details.
Right.
A good haircut,
Mm-hmm.
well-fitting clothes,
Yeah.
confident posture,
All of that.
all makes a difference. And body language.
Oh, yeah.
He's big on that.
Huge.
Dominant body language.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lean in.
Right.
Don't come across too eager.
No.
Don't have those submissive postures.
Take up space.
Right? Own your space.
Yeah.
Move with confidence.
Like fake it till you make it again.
It is kind of like that, yeah.
Even if you don't feel it.
Yeah.
Project it.
And there's something to that.
There is.
Our body language influences how we feel.
Right.
And how others perceive us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not about being arrogant or intimidating.
Oh.
It's about being comfortable.
Yeah.
Owning your presence.
Confidence is contagious.
It is. Yeah.
If you project it,
Yeah.
other people pick up on that.
Yeah. It creates that positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about visual presentation, body language. What about communication?
Okay.
What are some things guys can do to improve their communication?
He talks a lot about developing a strong voice.
Yeah.
Speaking clearly, slowly, using a deep tone.
Right.
Projecting confidence.
Eliminating those filler words.
Yeah, like, and all that stuff.
It's amazing how much our voices communicate.
Right.
Right.
It is.
And I never realized this, but, so much of what we perceive as smart is actually based on how someone presents themselves vocally.
How they use their voice.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't forget humor.
Oh, yeah. He's big on humor.
Right. Confident humor, teasing. It's about being playful, engaging.
And it shows confidence.
Right. And he uses some good examples here.
Yeah, like what?
Titanic, Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
He points out that those classic male characters use a lot of confident humor.
They do.
And the psychology of it is really interesting.
How so?
Humor can be so disarming.
Yeah. It can.
It creates this connection, shows that you're comfortable.
Right.
He uses these phrases, breaking rapport,
Yeah.
assuming rapport.
What does he mean by that?
So breaking rapport is intentionally challenging those social norms
Oh, okay.
to create intrigue.
Okay.
And assuming rapport is like acting as if
Right.
you're already comfortable and connected.
Gotcha. So you don't get that awkwardness.
Right. And he gives some funny examples here.
Like what?
He talks about teasing a woman about a shirt that looks like barber bandages.
Oh, yeah.
Or making a joke about a raw burger at a restaurant.
So it's about being playful and unexpected.
Exactly.
Unpredictable.
Right.
That keeps things interesting.
And it goes back to dopamine.
Right.
That anticipation, that excitement triggers those reward centers.
Makes you more attractive.
So when it comes to communication,
yeah.
It's about finding that balance
Mm-hmm.
between confidence,
Right.
assertiveness,
Mm.
playfulness,
Yeah.
engagement.
And it's about picking up on those cues, those signals
Right.
that communicate attraction.
Responding appropriately,
Yeah.
building that connection.
It's a delicate dance,
It is.
but you can learn it.
And it can lead to some amazing things.
They can.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this psychology of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
We've given some specific techniques
Yeah.
for attracting women.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's about
Mm-hmm.
becoming the best version of yourself.
That's the key takeaway.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just about attracting women.
It's about personal growth,
Right.
confidence,
Yeah.
social intelligence,
Yes.
understanding connection.
Living a life that's both attractive
Mm-hmm.
and fulfilling.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
About taking.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
Explored this psychology of attraction,
Mm-hmm.
given specific techniques
Yeah.
for attracting women.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about becoming the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
And it's important to remember that these are all just tools,
Yeah.
strategies.
Not a magic formula.
Right.
Ow.
It's up to each individual
Mm.
to decide how to use these insights,
Yeah.
find what works for them.
Mhm.
And it's important to approach this journey with a sense of
Mm.
curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
playfulness,
Yeah.
respect
Mm-hmm.
for yourself and others.
Of course.
So what are some takeaways from this deep dive?
Whoa.
What are some things listeners can do today
Yeah.
to improve their attractiveness,
Mm-hmm.
improve their lives?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence is so important, and
Yeah.
you can develop it.
So focus on your self-worth.
Yeah.
Identify your strengths.
Mm.
Celebrate your accomplishments.
Right.
Challenge those negative thoughts.
Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Take some risks.
Right. Try new things.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there.
And remember, it's not all about looks. It's about understanding the whole psychology of attraction.
Yeah. Those subtle dynamics.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how you interact,
Mm-hmm.
how you present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Observe body language,
Yeah.
tone of voice.
Mm-hmm.
Try to understand people's motivations.
And experiment.
Right.
See what works for you.
Right. Different things work for different people.
Exactly.
Attraction is a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
Right.
It's about constantly learning,
Mhm.
growing,
Mm.
evolving.
So embrace the process.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Right.
Enjoy it.
And most importantly,
What?
be yourself.
Yeah.
Authenticity is what's truly attractive.
That's the key.
It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring
Yeah.
for the unspoken signals and dynamics of attraction.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is that the speaker doesn't just give us this
Right.
theoretical framework.
Mm-hmm.
He actually encourages listeners to go out and try this
You
stuff.
get to put it into practice.
Mm. Yeah, experiment, see what works for them.
It's like this challenge
Yeah.
to break out of our comfort zones.
Right, and that's so empowering
Yeah.
to break free from those limitations, build confidence,
Yeah.
create those connections.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm
Yeah.
going to turn it back over to you, the listener.
Yeah.
What really resonated with you?
What surprised you?
Were you surprised by the emphasis on vibe
Mm-hmm.
and that primal response that he talks about?
Reverse rationalization. Did
Right.
that make you think differently about how we see our own experiences?
Right. It's really fascinating stuff. And here's a final thought
Okay.
to kind of ponder as you go about your day. How might these principles of attraction apply to other areas of your life?
Mm.
Like your career,
Mm-hmm.
your personal relationships.
Interesting.
Could understanding the psychology of attraction actually help you navigate those areas more effectively?
It's something to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah, just a taste.
But hopefully it's given you some insights
Mm-hmm.
and inspired you to maybe explore this further
Yeah, your own journey
on your own.
of attraction and self-discovery.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep learning.
And most importantly, keep growing.